All right, hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Unleash your Jira data with structure formulas on cloud. And with that, let's get started. So I am Connor, a learning and onboarding specialist here at Tempo. I work on learning initiatives at Tempo, and my main focus today is to maximize the value you get out of this learning session. So any feedback or suggestions are welcome. We have two main presenters on the call today. So we have a structure product expert, Aleksandr. Alex will be leading the demo today. We also have a structure cloud product manager, Konstantin, who will talk about feature parity and what's upcoming on the structure cloud roadmap, as well as answer your questions. And we also have Dimitri, QA lead for the structure product line, who's also in the background answering your questions. So for today's topic, first, structure cloud and on-premise differences. Konstantin's going to be talking about that. Introduction to Expert, structure formulas language, variables and functions, then writing your own formulas, formula use cases, and then, of course, plenty of time at the end for Q&A. Okay, so next up we have Konstantin, who will talk through differences between structured cloud and on-prem, as well as give some information about what's upcoming on cloud. So I'll give it over to you, Konstantin.
All right, thank you, Connor. I want to take a couple of minutes and go through cloud versus on-premise. So it's true that structured cloud and structured on-prem are different. And if you are migrating, for example, from server to cloud, you may notice that something you're used to is missing on cloud. And that's our priority, to make your migration process smoother and enable you to cover the same use cases on cloud. One thing I'd like to point out is that cloud and on-prem Jira platforms are completely different. So we have to reinvent many features and just build them from scratch on cloud, and it takes time. And if you see that a feature you used to have is not there, or for example, your formula from server is not working, please don't hesitate to reach out to our support team. We're building our roadmap based on your feedback. And we are making good progress in moving the most important on-prem features to cloud. And on the next slide, I'll show you a little more details on that. All right. So we introduced Structure Cloud in 2019, 4 years ago. And since then, we have been working to meet your expectations and move the most important features here. Over the years, we introduced many of them. Most notable ones are Structure Gantt release, Expert to Excel, and of course, our first version of formulas that we rolled out last year. If we take a closer look at the last 12 months, we've added timing status column, especially useful for Kanban teams to keep track of the health of your processes, Confluence macro to be able to, well, see your structures in Confluence, inline creation to quickly create new issues, and structure items if you don't want them to be created in Jira yet. And formulas. Now you can use formulas in Gantt, sort by a formula in structure, use more functions and properties while building your formula, including issue links, worklogs, and with the latest release that we had last week, you can even use formulas in other formulas. And to give you a heads up, right now the team is working to deliver text wrapping capabilities, quick groups to adjust your hierarchy on the fly, and bulk editing up to about 100 issues. The next features we are starting to work on soon are copying structure columns to Jira, or effectors, as we call them on DC and server. And that's about, for example, if you have your formula calculated and you want to write the data for your issues into a Jira field, you would need these. And structure fields to be able to have custom nodes and numeric values for your items without creating more Jira fields. So don't forget to subscribe to our release notes to know the first about the latest updates, and feel free to check our roadmap from time to time. So that's all from me, and over to Alex.
All right, thank you, Konstantin. So today's webinar is about formulas on the cloud. The webinar about formulas on the DC going to be next week. I understand that there are different users with the structure formulas. There are advanced users. There are people who never heard about the formulas before. And I try to cover as much as possible, starting from the basics and going up to the advanced usage. But of course, it's not possible to go over everything within 1 hour. So if you still have any questions about how to use formulas in your particular use cases, you can always contact us afterwards through our support channel. So what is Expert? Expert is a language which is used to write formulas in structure. And it stands for expression. It's expression of formulas. It is not a full-fledged development language, though it still has a lot of from that kind of languages. It has conditions, it has variables, functions, and we'll talk about it in a minute. But still, it's pretty easy to learn and to understand it. It's very close to the logic that formulas in Excel, Microsoft Excel uses. So we hope that everyone, and we know that everyone will be able to understand it and write their own formulas. It has a lots of functionalities. We can work with the hierarchies, with the data in the hierarchies, perform different type of the calculations. We have already mentioned that a lot of functions that built in the language itself that you can use out of the box, but you can also build your own functions and use these functions on top of your calculations. And same as everything in structure, formula is based on the information that comes from the Jira, and that information is always up to date. So any updates that happen on the fields in Jira and formula that uses that fields will be updated immediately. So it's always up-to-date information, and there's no lags between someone changes values in fields and that field's updated in the formulas. So why is it so good? What's its superpower? The calculation previously, to perform any type of the calculation that are not out of the box, not the attributes existing in the structure, you have to move it to somewhere else, like to the Excel, Google Sheets, EasyBI, and perform the calculation outside. But that immediately means that this data, when it is exported, it's became outdated, and there is no live connection between that exported data and the real data in Jira. And I already mentioned that formula provides you the ability to always work with the real data. And these are the points that I'm going to cover today. So how we can use the formula, what kind of operation we can use it for. Let's go to the next slide, and we'll probably start building our formulas. I'm going to grab the screen sharing. Okay, I hope everyone can see it. So I'm going to use the really simple hierarchy for examples. It's not very important. This particular case, I just want to show how the formula can be utilized. And the formula itself can be used in different places in structure, but the most cases it is used in the column. So it's formula column. And to add the formula column, just click on the plus button. We can type the formula in English, and formula will be available here as a column immediately. So it shows you the windows. There are different things over here. So by default, it always called formula. We urge you to change the name each time you create a new formula, because when you add a new columns, it's always going to be called formula, and having a bunch of formula column called formula column is a little bit confusing. So I'm going to rename it right away. There are other options on this view, and I'll go over it in a minute. So let's start to build something simple. So the formula works with data, so we need to add some data inside. In most of the cases, this data comes from Jira fields, so we need to access or call for value in Jira fields. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to type story points. So what I want to see the story points value in formulas. And if I click save, it automatically maps this variable, and we call this variable, to the story points fields. There is a mechanism that automatically maps variables to the most common used fields like story points, assignee, and other fields. And if the name is pretty much similar, it will automatically find it and maps it. So I can slightly change it, and it's still going to be mapped. a little best practices. It's not possible to use two-word variables. It always should be one word, and it usually should be named really closely to the field name. If I call it something absolutely differently, formula will not be able to find it. So I had to manually map the formula variable to the field in the Jira from that menu. So I need to find story points in this case. Okay, so the other options that exist over here is one of those is sum over sub-items, and that is standard field that exists in all structure columns. So we can summarize the field. So this is standard story points column. We can summarize the values on the top in the hierarchy and a couple of exclude options on that. So formula also allows to do that. You can summarize values provided in the formula. And there is also the output format. And this is important sometimes because the output format from the formula can be different. It can be text, it can be number, it can be Wiki markdown and other things, durations, for example. And sometimes it's needed to be changed manually, depending on what kind of output you're expecting from the formula. But we'll go over it in the examples as well. So the story points. I have the story points values over here, but it's pretty dull just to look at the story points in the formula. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to write a simple expression. So I'm going to use the if statement and say if story points exists. So the if statement is a Boolean operation. That means if I write it like this, if story points, it gives me 1 if story points value exists, and 0 is if it doesn't exist. So I just want to see if the value in the field exists for each stories in my case, and in Apex, give me some output. And the output I want to see is just a text, like story point exists, for example. Like this. And of course, it doesn't work because I tried to summarize the text. So it's the simple way to work with your information. So I get information from the field and I apply the condition if statement to see if the value exists. The if statement in many cases come with the another one, which is else. So one of the results if story point exists, another results if there is no story points. In this case, it doesn't show anything, but I can use else statement and ask for additional information like no story points. That gives me no story points on this side. So I have the information in Jira. I apply the function in the formula, and I get additional insights, what's going on, what I have and what I don't have. So this is really, really simple, but we gradually going to increase the complexity of the formulas. So let's move to another example. Now I can call for a due date. Due date is a field in the Jira standard field, which is the end date of my work on the tasks. So let's see if I have any due dates. Now I can see the bunch of numbers. And these numbers actually represent the due dates, but the way the dates are written in Jira is it's milliseconds from the particular date. So in this case, I need to change the format because this is the date and the output format should be the date. And I'm also going to change the style. So now it's the date. I can see the due date as a date in my formula. And again, I can apply a simple expression like if due date less than today, and today is a built-in function in the formula syntax, which returns just today's date. So I'm just comparing two dates. So if it's less than today, again, give me some warning like overdue, and it provides me the overdues. Again, similar, very simple toy example that allows us to fetch the information from the Jira that is not easily visible and easily accessible by default from the Jira. Okay, so since we start talking about the functions, let's discuss the functions. We have very robust documentation on the formula. So if you click on this link, it would bring you to the formula window. You can see the whole documentation about the formulas. And what I want to concentrate right now is the function section. So there are multiple types of the functions. And the one that I want to look at right now is the list of the function over here. I'm not going to cover all of it today, just some of that. You just need to know that there are different functions that allows you to work with information. And you can go here, look the function that corresponds to your use case and see the examples, just copy paste it and use. So the one that I want to show example with is a function from the aggregate sections. So aggregate functions allows to aggregate values using the hierarchy and structure. And same, there's a lot of examples, different aggregated functions for different cases. I'm going to use the simple one, which is sum, which is summarize the value. And it is similar to the Excel, so I'm just putting sum. And in the curly brackets, I need to put the value that I'm going to summarize. And I'm going to use the same story points. Type it. Points. Okay, it should give me the values if I choose the right output format for the story points. And this one is similar, just to summarizing it on the column itself. I just got the values over here. Let's make it more complex. The aggregated values, aggregated functions also have what it's called modifiers. And modifiers, as it says, it modifies the function itself. So in this case, it summarizes everything from each row. But if I modify it with word children, so sum over children, it would only perform the sum function over the items that has children. So in this case, only on the epic levels. So now I can see the sum of the story points on top on the epic. And again, this is a simple example. It can be much more complex. There are a lot of modifiers. I can perform the aggregation function on different levels. So I can separate different levels. I can switch the order of the summarizing going upwards and down. So a lot of things that can be applied, just combining different modifiers and different functions. Okay, so now the value that used in this function, the story points, just taken from all the issues, in this case, for all the children below the epics. But we can make it a little bit more complex. I can put the condition inside these curly brackets. So I don't want to see the sum of all the story points. I want to see the sum of only story points from the stories that are in particular status. In this case, I want to see the sum of story points that not completed. So I can write if status not equal done or completed, take the story points. And it would only process the story points from the item which status is not completed. And again, this expression inside the curly brackets can be much more complex. I can refer the priorities, the assignees, the anything that can separate different stories from each other. Okay, a little example on the aggregation values. So I have my cheat sheet with the formulas, and I'm going to copy paste one of the formulas I've written in advance. So this is the max aggregation function that goes over the children, and as the argument, I'm using the due date. So what it returns me the latest due date of its children. So now on the epic level, I can see the latest due date of sub-items. I can switch it to mean and see the minimum, the earliest due date of the children. And again, it's the idea of using formulas is to grab the information that otherwise is hidden somewhere down below the hierarchy. Okay, so that's the aggregation functions. Another function types I want to highlight is arrays function. So arrays is the different values combined together, and some of the native Jira fields are array fields like labels or sprints, so they contain multiple values at the one field. So if I put labels, for example, it will give me, if I have some labels, so I have 3 labels on that particular story, it gives me the array of those labels. And we have a bunch of functions that can work with the arrays. And arrays are very, very powerful construction to work within the formulas, because we can grab a lot of different values from, let's say, from below the hierarchy and put it in an array on top of the hierarchy. And then we can reference these values back and forth. So we can like have the bunch of data on the top and just reference that data from the below hierarchy. Some simple examples how array can be processed, like I have these labels, and I can get the number of the values inside. And of course, it should be general. So very, very simple. But I can use functions like that allow me to find the particular values in that particular array or compare different arrays. Another thing I want to highlight before I go into more complex examples is called properties. So we have ability to access properties of specific attributes. It sounds a little bit complex, but let's move to documentation. It should be easy from that view. So we have a bunch of the attributes, and this is the list of those attributes, like issue type, component, issue links, sprint. And each of these attributes has a list of properties that can be accessed. For example, sprint has name, it has ID, start date, complete date, goal. And these properties are hidden inside the Jira directly. So it's not the field, actually, it's the property of the particular field. And we can access these properties through the formula syntax. And the example, sprints, for example. So I can call sprints. That will bring me the that will bring me the array of sprints, because issue can be multiple sprints at the same time. So so here I can access the property. So let's say I want to access the start date of the sprint, and if there's start date, it will bring in start date in the millisecond format, so like this. And we can work with these property results like with the normal variables, so we can utilize those in the expressions, in the functions. The simple example is, let me switch the structure, so I will have structure with sprints. And if I go here in the formula and call sprint the end date, it should give me the sprint end dates, and I change it to date. Now I can compare it. So I can compare, for example, with today. So if it sprint date less than today, give me some warning. The more complex example would be, so let me copy paste it like this. So I first check if it's still active, and state is also the property of the sprint. And then I get the end date and compare it with today. And if it's not, if it's in the past, it's not okay. We still have the active sprint, which end date is in the past. So we grab in that information that inside the property and use it in the formulas. Okay, let me go quickly back. And you'll notice that there are a lot of properties for a lot of attributes. And we, if you migrate it from the server, you probably notice that server has slightly more options there, but we gradually add in all the possibilities that server had to the cloud itself. So eventually, cloud will get all the property available on the server as well. Okay, the next thing which is recently added to the formulas on the cloud is ability to work with the issue links. And issue links, it's the way to connect different issues inside the Jira. And it is also, it's not the field, it's kind of attribute of the Jira, and it has its own properties, like issue link has directions, issue link has source, issue link has destination, and we can work with that in the formal as well. So I can call the issue links like this, and I cannot spell it correctly. And it brings the array, again, it's array of all the issue links going inward and outwards from the particular item. So it can come to the item and it go from the item to another items, and they all brought here. This is not super convenient to look at it this way. So we're gonna work with this array of data to focus on the particular information we need. So because it's array, we have specific function for the arrays. I already mentioned that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to filter on this information, and I want to only see the particular issue types. In this case, it's called blocking, which blocks items. And I also want to see particular direction. So I want to only see the blockers for my items in this structure. It doesn't matter for me if these items blocking other items in Jira. I just want to see blockers for this particular work. So I'm going to add in destination, and destination going to be key because it goes to this particular key. Okay, let's see if it brings me anything. Okay, so we narrowed down to the blockers that comes to that particular item, but still I have the items that where the blockers is, so the source itself and the destination. But it's probably easy just to look at the source, so the blocker itself, not at the source. And because this is the issue type, it's the key, but it's the issue type, which has its own properties, and these properties can be defined in the documentation. So I can call for the properties for these issue types. For example, the status. So now I can see the status of the blockers for these particular issues in my hierarchies without adding those as the sub-items, for example. And this just goes through the issue links and grabs the information and shows it here. So I can easily have small structures without adding a lot of noisy information, and just use the formula to see what blocks me currently. I can put in the status, the other information, the issue key. I can combine the different types of information like status and issue key together, and easily see if something is blocking me currently and something is needed to be done. We have what is called embedded formulas. It's the formulas that are already written and saved as the column. And they are here in the list of the columns under the calculated options over here. So all of these are the formulas, and there is actually open blockers example, and it is pretty much the same that I have written right now. The only difference is it also checks the status of the source, and if it's not completed, only in this case, it shows it over here, and it also uses the additional syntax to make this issue key clickable, so you can click on it and go into the Jira ticket. I don't have any open blockers. Okay. Another recent add-on to other options in our formulas on the cloud is ability to work with the worklogs. So worklogs on the cloud, the slight difference between the server and the cloud is that worklogs on the server always exist in the server database. It doesn't matter where these worklogs are created in the other app like Tempo or inside the Jira directly. The database is the one database. On the cloud, it's slightly different. That's why if you have Tempo connected to the structure, if you have ability to add Tempo worklogs like over here, we have ability to access through the formula both separately Jira worklogs and Tempo worklogs. And it is done through the attributes and properties, the same thing. You can see it over here. There are two different attributes for different properties. And I'm going to show you a little example how it can be used. And I'm going to write it myself. It takes some time, so I'm just going to copy paste it. So what this formula does, it takes the Jira worklogs, but it can be temp worklogs easily. It groups it by author. And then it calculates the percentage of completeness by different authors. So you can see the segregation between the different authors. You can see this tempo timesheet because the tempo worklogs are in this case, because I'm accessing it through the Jira. They are anonymized. So this is the user that done the work on the Jira, and this is what has been done and logged through the tempo worklogs. But it's just an example to show you that the worklogs itself can be worked on. And again, worklogs is array, the same array. And that means I can apply array functions to that worklog array and just slice and dice it the way I need it. And there are a lot of options how it can be done. Okay. Next thing I want to highlight is variables. So I've been talking about variables previously. So the story points I've used in my first example is a variable, but variables can be much more complicated, and not only the Jira fields can be used as the variables. We can use the variables created inside the formula, which would be local variables. We can create the functions inside the formula, which also be treated as the variables, local variable. And we can also refer the other formulas. So if we have a bunch of formulas, we can refer each other as the variable and use it in our next formulas. So let's quickly talk about that. So when I just add the mapped Jira field, it's one thing. But if I want to create a local variable inside my formula, I need to start it with word with, and then goes the name of my variables. So I can say something similar like if story points equals, and then maybe some calculation of the story points, and then use these story points variables in my upcoming calculations. The quick example, if I'm not also going to write directly, just copy paste it, is like this. So it is similar to what I have created previously. So I use this sum of the children, but in this case, I'm using status completed. So I calculated the sum of story points of completed items on epic level. And I call this variable done story points. Then I use the sum over all story points over my children, and that is called all story points. And then I use these two local variables to calculate the ratio of these two. And that gives me the result. Probably select the percentage output, and that gives me the percentage of completed story points over the epic. Again, this is quite simple example, but it shows you how you can structure a formula a little bit in more easy way to read, let's call it like that, because I can do the same in one formula in one line, just divide this first line over the next line. But when you have really big formula, it's really hard then to debug it. If something's not working, something's not correct, you need to go and see what's going on. And sorry, and when you put the complex calculation, especially if they use them several times in the formula, it's really good practice to use it with the local variables. These small disclaimer: the local variables in this case means it is local for this particular formula. So I cannot access these done story points in my another formula. So it only works for this particular window with the formula, and it exists only for it. Okay. So I mentioned that you can use the another formula as the variable, and let's show it in some examples. So I have the do-in embedded formula. So if I open it, you can see it's the formula that calculates when the item is going to be due, and if it's overdue, it shows overdue. So let's use this particular formula as the example over here. So I'm going to refer that formula in my example 1, and its principle is the same. I just need to map my variable in this formula with the formula column on the right, and I'm going to do it with do in like this, and if I just click anywhere, it can find it in Jira, so I need to click and map it manually. So now you can see I have this formula here below. And the way it works, it just copies the formula from the original box into the box for this particular formula, and then use it in the calculation. But it's just a copy. So if I change something in the original formula over here, these changes will not be automatically updated in my base formula, because it's the copy of the original formula. And it's the way how it works, the same way it works on the server version. So if you need to apply some changes, you have to either apply these changes over here, or just reconnect again the variable when you change something in the original formula. And the way it works, it's pretty similar. So I can put the expression and use it as this normal variable, as the local variable, same I did it previously. Okay. Let's move to my final section. And the final section is Wiki Markdown. It exists for some time on the cloud already. We just add some more functionality to it recently. And the Wiki Markdown is, it's called Wiki Markup on the server, is the way to highlight the data output in our formulas. And the simple example, though maybe it's not that simple, I'm gonna copy paste it over here. And because it's Wiki Markdown, it's the separate output format, I have to change it to the Wiki Markdown, and it gives me the this beautiful text and emoji. And let's see how it works. So it takes the due date as the variable, and due date is the field in the Jira, and compares with the today's date. Same thing I've done previously, but I used just the text as the output, hard-coded text. This one uses the Wiki Markdown syntax. It's separate syntax. It's not really our syntax. It's syntax from Markdown itself, from the Confluence. And I created several conditions, like if the difference between the due date and today more than 7 days, less than 7 days, something else, it provides me the output results. So most of the cases for Wiki Markdown is changing the color of the text, adding some icons, emojis, or put the panel with the color underneath. And the main idea is just to highlight the visually the information we've got, just to bring more attention to that. If something is causing the problem, we can just put the reddish color with big words on that something is wrong. Let's go over another example. So I have over here some more interesting thing. And this one creates the panel, the color panel underneath. Not really good from the use perspective. It's just the summary highlighted with the panel, but you got the idea. It's just a way to visualize the important information. And again, because it's just the output format, the formula itself can be really complex and really specific for your use case. It's just in the end, you put this output value and compose it with the Wiki Markdown to highlight this information. Okay, so there is another interesting thing I want to show you over here. So I used function, the local function, to set up the Wiki Markdown itself. And it's kind of similar to the local variables, but I just put the separate calculation into the separate function. So it's not the embedded function, it's function that I created, and you can create your own functions. The idea is, again, to simplify the syntax, to simplify the view, so that from one glance I could see, okay, I have this function on the top, it takes these two variables inside, and then there is output. And for that variables goes the summary and the color. And again, it's a simple example. You can use it for much more complex things. All of those examples I showed you, they all can be found in our sample formulas page in the documentation. So you can go and in the subsection that is interesting to you and copy and paste it and tweak it a little bit to be more suitable for you, and use it for your use case. And just for the example, we can grab this custom progress visualization and put it over here. Let's see if it works. I need to select the progress, so it uses sub progress, and I'm going to use the progress. Okay, it doesn't find the progress. Let me add the progress as the column. Progress by status. Let's see if I have a progress. So let's try to map this program by status. Yes. So it's just another way to look at the progress visualization with the Wiki Markdown. And in the end, before we move to the QA, just a couple of real-world examples that have been taken from our customers, and it's the way how our customers utilize the formulas. One of the example is risk matrix built with Wiki Markdown. And the idea here is that changing these two values, risk consequence and risk probability, will change the output of the formula, and it put it in different place, and it highlighted with the different colors. So the more on the top, the more to the right the item is, the more problematic it's going to be. So it's slightly simplified, but we've seen customers use that to visualize their work with the formulas. Another example is, and this is kind of simplified portfolio overview when I have everything in one structure, starting from higher level, going down to the lower levels. And the one that I wanted to show is health metrics. So it metric that is based again on the progress, but in this time I'm utilizing the different background and different text and emoji to highlight the things that probably going slightly off the road. The last example is purely calculated, no markdown. So that one is pre-PI planning stage, when we need to calculate which feature is going to be taken into the PI planning phase. And it's done, if we use SAFe methodology, it's done with WSGF metric, which is weighted shortage job first. So what it does, it takes a bunch of values that stakeholders is voting for the particular feature, like business value, time criticality, job size, and other things. It multiplies it and creates a metric that is then shown over here as the formula. And this formula actually is one of the embedded formulas. You can find it in the list of the formulas in the column. You just need to map the different variables which represent these different fields in the Jira with your fields which you're going to use for calculating this metric, and it's just going to give you the result. And then you can sort by that formula and put the highest on the top and move that into the next phase by changing the status, for example. So it's just an example. Okay, I think I'm going to stop over here, and we look at the questions if we have any.
All right, thanks, Alex. Enlightening demo as always. There are lots of questions coming in, some being answered, many being answered as well. First question I think I got for you here, Alex, is what is the general guidance between using the sum over sub items as opposed to using something like the sum function in the formula itself?
Great question. So the sum over sub items is purely summarizes all the values you have in your hierarchy on the top. And if your parent item also has the value, like let me turn off it for the second. You can see I have this epic with the story points, and the sum over sub items in this case includes this value, and it also shows you the value itself on the right over here. In different cases, you need different approaches to that sum function. So sometimes you don't need to put in the parent level. Sometimes you don't need to start it from this level. Maybe you want to start it from the lower levels, or maybe some of these items also have sub items, and you don't want to include that into the calculation. In this case, formula can do all that for you. So you can write the formula that takes only the values that you want to summarize and show the result without any other not that necessary values.
Great, thank you. Another question about sums. Can you do an example of how to add color when a sum value is over or under a target value?
Yeah, sure. Let's try to do that. Let's see if I have a sum. So let's take this simple sum function, and we can put the example like if this value is less than 100, and then put the highlighting using the Wiki markdown, and this one, let's see, just copy paste one of the examples and slightly change it. And we can put like something like that and highlight it with the color. But I can also use the function. I can create a function that would take as the argument the result of this comparison. And I would, in this case, create several condition like if it less than 100, if it more than 100, and something else. And these results would go through this function, and depending on the condition, less than 100, more than 100, it's going to use the different coloring or different background. So it's pretty much similar to the example I showed with this one, with the due date. So just instead of the this direct example, when I compare due date with today, you can use sum over your values and less than that value, and then use this Wiki markdown.
Perfect. Thank you, Alex. Another question. We have some people asking about syntax guidance. So does Structure provide syntax guidance or even autocomplete functionality for non-technical folks who may need to build queries or formulas?
Not yet. It would highlight the error. So, for example, if I don't put in the right syntax, it would show that below this line something is wrong. So it misses the stood out sign. But we're working on the make it more complex. The server version of the formula already has the debug mode when you can go through this formula in debug step by step and see which result each line provides and see where the problem is. So currently, the highlights for the syntax are kind of basic. So it's just if there's a problem or there's not a problem. But we're definitely going to work on increasing that functionality, maybe combining that with AI or something more fancy in the future.
Great, thanks for the clarification. Another one, can one embed a structure page into a Confluence or Microsoft Word or Microsoft SharePoint page?
The question is if we can embed the structure in the Confluence page. If so, yes. There is a structure gadget that can be added to the Confluence, and you can select the structure that you want to see in the Confluence page, and you'll see that that structure over there. It's similar to the gadget on the dashboard you have in Jira, so you can put it into your Confluence page. But it also only works within that license, so you'll not be able to put it into the other system because it should be one platform.
Perfect, thank you. Is it possible to see on a specific issue its grandfather? So for example, to see on a subtask, being able to see its epic.
Yes, with some limitation, but yes, there is a function, aggregation function called parent, and the parent actually goes up on the hierarchy. So I can say parent and what I want from the parent, like, I don't know, summary, and that will bring the summaries from the parent to its children. But it can be different things like statuses and other things, but it's the way to grab the parent value, put it on below values. There is other more complex things. I mentioned that, so I can create an array of the values on the top and put in this array pretty much anything I want. And then from these lower levels, I can access that array and just take that information below. But it's really advanced and complex cases. And if you have that particular need, just contact us for the support, and we'll be glad to look at that.
Thank you, Alex. Is there a way to find time remaining in a sprint or release? So to create a health check based on remaining story points or estimates time remaining?
Yes, I suppose, sure, why not? It all depends how you calculate that estimates. The really simple example is that you can compare your original estimate, which is original estimate field, with remaining estimate plus time spent, and see if original estimate is higher, less than time spent for remaining estimate, which means we underestimated your items. And same things we can do on the sprint level. So if I go to the sprints, I can grab with the formulas the remaining estimates for this task and put it on the sprint level, or it may be epic level, depend how you structure your view, and just summarize it and compare with the let's say epic estimation or sprint estimation, and see if it's how it works together. If it's not, if it's too much more than original estimate, you can highlight it with markdown. But again, it all depends on how you structure your work. But generally, it should be possible, yes.
Perfect. A few people have asked, can I share formulas I created with my colleagues?
Not through the specific interface. And what I mean by that, there's no way to save your formula globally. We have this on the server. I'm going to talk about it next week. It's called formula library. When you have the ability to save your written formula in the global library, and then other people who you gave the access to that library can copy that formula to their structures. So on the cloud, there's no such availability yet. We're definitely going to bring it in the future. So currently, it's either copy pasting the whole formula and save it on like Confluence page on any other shared resources, or you can save it as a view. So when you save the view, like the one I have with the formulas here, it's going to save all the formulas itself. But other people can grab that view and put it to their structures. But the thing here is that the formula is dependent on the hierarchy you are using it with. And if the hierarchy, the other people try to use this formula with this formula probably give different results. But generally, it's workable way. You can save a bunch of formulas as a view and just share it with the people. Then they can copy these formulas in their views and adjust it for the hierarchies.
Great. Thanks for that clarification. All right, so Alex, if you are able to, since you're still sharing your screen, just go back to the slides really quick and we will be wrapping up here. All right, so just before I let you go, where to go next, right? So there are some helpful links here for you to check out if you're interested, such as from the Help Center, some Atlassian community articles, as well as a link to join the structured community on Slack. Also, another quick reminder that we have the Structured Formulas webinar coming up that is all about formulas on DC server. So if you're on DC or server and you're still here listening, make sure to check that out for sure. There's also an upcoming webinar called Accelerate Your 2024 Planning Season with Tempo Best Practices for Your Roadmaps and Project Portfolio. So this webinar will focus a lot on Roadmonk, which is another Tempo product, but will also include a sneak peek into how Structure is being integrated with other Tempo apps, such as by connecting Structure managed data to financial planning using cost tracker reports and dashboards. So using charts and graphs with Structure, which is very exciting. So thank you for your attendance and participation. We hope to see you all again soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.